Perez. Wilton makes a run ahead of it. Bergkamp suddenly changed pace through the centre. It's Bergkamp! That's magnificent! The move, and then this, which left Dabby's ass totally stranded.
Hello and welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland. If you are listening, or you are watching, or you are faking another moon landing, we are here with a 36th edition of the predictions. I was going to check. I always have to, because every time it changes by one. Yeah, it is indeed number 38 with Jared from the Gooners pod, unless the Feinberg has changed the name of it again. Like, I never trust that, man. Jared, how are you doing?
Doing good. Glad to join the series. It's been fun. I've been watching as many as I can and really enjoyed it, and hoping that I am able to keep it under Mike Herr's sort of time and keep it a little more succinct.
I've seen podcasts with three people on less time than what he was yabbering on about, and I've got no idea what he was talking about most of the time. Something about Guatemala and some other nonsense. I've got no idea what it was. So what have you been up to? I haven't seen you doing podcasts for a while, and I think you did one the other day with them lot, didn't you? But in general, you've been a little bit quiet.
Yeah, we finally got together and did our prediction show yesterday. Me and the boys, everybody other than Magic, got together for one. But yeah, beyond that, I've been really busy with work more or less this entire year, and have been pretty much out of the podcasting group for the better part of the last 4 or 5 months. So nice to kind of be back in the swing of things.
Yeah, what is up with the Feinberg? You know, ever since he was a podcasting nobody, him and Andy, little minnows, swimming around in their primordial soup of a pond. And I introduced him to a few people, and now he's left us all behind. He's sitting at the top table with all the oi polloi, all the names in the business, and he's left us behind, hasn't he?
He has. He just sent me a picture about 20 minutes ago of him and Vinay hanging out, I believe, at the Supporters Trust thing. So he's been all over with the summer tour, the Gooners vs. Cancer live events. He's kept himself plenty busy. So good for him. At least one of those things is a good cause. The rest is probably more for himself.
And talking of people that he has been schmoozing with is Sophie from the Hybrid Squad, listening with 38,000 feet. She's either become a millipede or she's in a plane. One of the two. I'll let you people decide. You're right, Soph. Hope you're enjoying yourself. We're just talking about Feinberg disowning all of us now that he's drinking champagne with the top people rather than sharing a can of Coke with 6 straws with the rest of us. So anyway, never mind. Let him get on with it. But he did say, I mean, I don't know if he's lost his mind. He said, I will be free on Wednesday at 4:83 a.m. I mean, what is 4:83 a.m.? I don't even know. Since he's lost all that fat, he's gone mad.
Yeah, I don't. With him, he's such a wild card. You never know. He may be on an hour early. He may cancel out on you last minute. Not that he would ever do that yesterday. I'm just saying hypothetically, it could happen.
I think when he comes on here, as I know, can no longer fat shame him or slut shame him. I'm going to pod shame him for abandoning his brothers. Sophie's trying to say Mike drank the Kook Aid. He's gone. She means Kool-Aid. I'm not sure what Kook Aid is, but it's something I'd drink. I think I'd give it a go. So, have you been impressed with pre-season and the Charity Shield? Is it tingling you at all?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I've enjoyed the preseason. The Charity Shield, it's not a huge deal. I don't make too much of it, but like any competition or any game, you'd rather win it than lose it, whether it's important going forward or not. But it's not as much about the quote trophy as it is. I think it's good for our team to just go into a game with City and come out with a positive result in any kind of way. Just mentally, they've had our number for so long, and with such a young team, most of these guys have likely never had any sort of decent result come out of a game with City. So to get any sort of feeling of momentum against them is probably a positive going into the new year.
The only one that's had any kind of luck against Man City would be the ones who either played for Man City or Arteta back in the day when Man City were rubbish. Other than that, I think hardly anybody there's had any kind of luck with it, which is what a bit weird. But do you think we've given them the willies because they weren't expecting us to do that, and we were the better team on the day? Don't care if we scored a 98th minute injury time winner. We had the best chances, and we looked like the more dominant side because Haaland looked like he didn't even know what was going on for most of the game, did he?
Yeah, it's pretty rare you say that Haaland was a non-factor. And even at 0-0 at halftime, you would have to say, if you were an objective supporter, which of course we're not, or an objective watcher of the game, it's hard to say that Arsenal didn't look slightly better. The first 5-10 minutes, City really came out sharp and did exactly what they do. They dominated the ball. They controlled it. It's exactly what you expect when you turn them on. But as we sort of grew into the game, that balanced out. And I thought we outplayed them for the first 45. We certainly created the more dangerous chances with Havertz. And then, like you said, Haaland barely had a touch of the ball, which if there's any way to stop a phenomenal scorer from putting it in the back of the net, it's to not let him touch it to start with. So I think at least for us, that first half pretty well went to plan. And then, a little fortunate on the equalizer, certainly, but you get lucky when you put the ball at the net. And like we've seen over the years, City, it's almost death by 1,000 cuts. They don't always have to have the most beautiful, well-worked goals. If you just keep firing it in the direction of the keeper, you can get rebounds, you get those odd deflections, and things tend to fall your way. So, I was happy with the game, enjoyed watching it, and obviously extremely happy with the result.
Yeah, I agree with that. Phil says, is Mike visiting you while he's over, Danny? No, I'm no longer in his circle of influential people. He's climbed upon us to reach dizzy heights, and he might wipe his shoes on us on the way down because, look at him. Look at him here. He is with some bloke on the left. I don't know who that is. I should do. Is that Tom?
No, it's Rick. He's the head of the St. Louis area Arsenal supporters group here stateside. Great guy.
Of course he is. And there's Vidai in the middle, and there is Skinny Feinberg there. And look at Skinny Feinberg's face. I had to think, is that? I honestly had to look 2 or 3 times to see if that was actually him.
It's pretty remarkable how much he's changed in the last 6-8 months.
Yeah, not only has he ignored all of his friends, but he's a skinny boy now. So no, he doesn't come and see me anymore. He might send someone round with a food package or something for me, but that's and Jared and Phil says, Jared sounds super silky. Is it the expensive mic?
It's got to be. I feel like I have an annoying voice in general, so it must be the mic.
No, you're very, very good. Let's go and get up the screen so I can do your... This is the last show of the day, people, because quite frankly, I'm sick of doing them. So we might do some more. I've got a few people lined up for later in the week. Feinberg at whatever 383 is, but I'm not sure. First of all, we need to confirm a few basic details. Your name is Jared Carver.
That is correct.
And your username is JC_AFC, and you have that tattooed somewhere on your body in case we lose you.
Obviously, it's barcoded, it's tattooed. I'm good to go.
And you are unfortunately a part of the Gooners pod.
Yeah, I've not yet reached any sort of heights that'll let me escape poverty in the podcasting world, so I am still on the Gooners pod every now and again.
Reprobates, the lot of them. With the 2 main people who started it can barely turn up to do podcasts anymore. That's the kind of world we're living in. Who have you got to win the Premier League? And if Boy 10 turns up and you don't pick Arsenal, you will be branded a heretic.
Well, the good news there is I have Arsenal to win it.
Ooh, lovely jubbly. Why? If there's any haters out there, why have you picked the Arsenal and not Man City?
My hope for us this year is we're going to split Champions League and Premier League with them. I would much rather, me personally, I would rather win the Premier League because I think it's more difficult than winning the Champions League. And part of it too, when you have a younger squad, even though we have added some real maturity in a player in Declan Rice, not somebody who's played for those big trophies before, we've at least got the experience of feeling the pressure of being in contention, or in our case, leading a lot of the way coming down the stretch in the Premier League. So our guys have some experience there, and I think we'll be able to hold up to that pressure a little bit better. Champions League's just a different animal. It's difficult. It's extremely difficult depending on the draw you get. And it's one none of our players have really had to feel that pressure before. I still expect us to perform well there. And, if I had to pick it, I think we've got a team that could make it to a final, but I would pick us if I had to predict it to a quarterfinal. I think it'd be a little early to predict a double for Arsenal, and I think that would be a bit of a stretch, but I think one trophy is in the cards for us in those big competitions potentially, which is a great thing because we haven't been able to reasonably say that in a preseason in quite some time now.
Yeah, very true. I agree with all that. Wise words indeed. So what have you got for Arsenal's top goal scorer all competitions? Have you put much thought into this, or are you just going to randomly pick a player like some of these fools have done?
I mean, with this squad, you almost can. I think there's a good argument we're going to have, a half dozen guys hit double-figure goals next season, so it could be relatively close. But when it comes down to it, I lean in the favor of either the guy who's taking the penalties or the guy who's the best player overall. And for us, that's the same person. So I've got Bukayo Saka, top goal scorer this season.
I said that earlier, that we could have 4 or 5 players all on around the 20 goal mark, because goal scoring is not our problem, is it?
Not at all. What we put in 89, 90 last season, something like that?
I think it was 88, and the record ever was 87.
Okay.
So, I mean, it beat Wenger's record, which is something special. Now, talking of losers, where have you got the scum finishing?
Well, it's interesting because, my assumption is that Harry Kane's going to be there. Daniel Levy will just let him rot there forever, not take the money, let the team get even worse once he leaves on a free, which is great. But assuming they have Kane this year, just did a quick glance at the table, and I counted 8 teams right off top that I thought would finish higher than them. So give me a 9th place finish for Spurs.
Do you think he's going to go? I mean, I know you just said that you think Levy's going to make him stay, but realistically, do you think he's going to go? Because Bayern are going to get fed up waiting for him to make his mind up or accept an offer. And Chelsea are always swooning around for a striker, aren't they? And they've got the Poch links. I think that'd be hilarious.
That's true. I mean, Bayern, at least the rumor I saw, who knows how credible any of these figures are, was that their last and potentially final bid was, I think, with bonuses up to like 110 million, which if you're Spurs, I think you're absolutely just off your rocker to not take that money. You're going to hang on to him for a year of competing to maybe get into the Conference League and then lose him on a free is madness. But that's Levy's style. He just doesn't want to be made to look like he's losing the best player on their squad. So he's going to sink the ship hanging on to him for a year of mediocrity, would be my best guess.
Why can't they make an all or nothing documentary on him this season? Oh, I'd watch that fucker. I'd watch it twice.
Oh, that would be glorious.
I think, as the kids call it, it'll be limbs and scenes all the way through. FA Cup winner. Have you got us up for a cheeky double or triple or quadruple?
As much as I'd like to, I feel like we're going to be so focused on those other two that it's just not going to be the priority that it typically is for Arsenal. So I went with a team that I'm expecting a little bit of a resurgence from last season, and that's Liverpool. They've got an entirely new midfield, but if that works itself out and they kind of get into form relatively quickly, I think they're going to score a lot of goals this year, and they're going to be a tough team to beat. And they've got a really good manager, so I like their chances to come away with that competition with potentially Arsenal and City not quite as focused on it as they may be.
Does make sense. Are you going to be kind and give the League Cup to some pauper team, or are you going to give it to one of the big boys?
Well, it's certainly not a poor team that I'm going to give it to. I have Newcastle down for the League Cup. I was a little unsure on it. I could see it can go so many different ways. I know they're in the big competitions this year as well, but depending on how quickly they look to be out of those, they may be able to put a little more focus there. And as much as I hate to say it, they've built a talented squad and they play good football, solid manager. And I just think they're a good enough team to get something out of this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like him for the Newcastle fans. I'd like Newcastle to win something, but not for the owners, not for that Amanda woman, and just not for football in general. But Newcastle, as we were looking earlier, the last time they won a trophy was the Intertoto Cup, when 3 teams won it that season, all got through to the UEFA Cup. And before that, it was the 1969 Fairs Cup, which is the prequel to the UEFA Cup. They've not had the amount of money they've spent over the years. They've not had a lot to shout about, have they? Bless them.
So and I'm with you. You feel for the fans, but just with the takeover and the money situation, I can't find myself rooting for them at all. But you certainly feel for the people that have been fans for their entire lives that really are just kind of thrown into that sort of ownership and are sticking with their squad. So I definitely respect that part of it a little bit, but I can't find myself rooting for them.
How about Champions League? What you got here? I think you hinted earlier that we're going to make a run for this. What you got?
Yeah, I think we'll make a good run and make a good effort, but I've got City again. I picked us to win the Premier League, and I don't see us in a place where we're going to beat them in both competitions or outlast them in both. So I split it up and gave us the league, City the Champions League, which, given the talent level they have, seems like not that bold of a prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather win the Premier League than the Champions League, because the Premier League means you're the best in your country. Champions League just means you could have won the UEFA Cup last season or the Europa League, and that's how you got into it. So it's made it not as good as it used to be when it was only the champions. You were the best of the best. Now, I mean, if you're winning another cup and you get there, well, you finish fifth in your group or your league. It's a bit of a nonsense at times. So. A Premier League player, top goal scorer, all competitions.
I mean, again, I'm not going to make too bold of a choice. It's hard to bet against Erling Haaland. He's the team that they have all the possession. They create the most chances. He's the best goal scorer. I mean, outside of an injury, it's hard to imagine a scenario where he's not the Golden Boot winner by some way. Just to give you a little bit of if you want to call it a bold prediction, I said on our show yesterday, in the event that Haaland is not the leading goal scorer or is injured, or we just want to call it a silver boot, the second in the competition, I actually think Darwin Nunez at Liverpool is going to have a breakout year and start converting some chances. And I don't think he'll get anywhere near Haaland numbers, but I think he'll have a real chance of being second in the Premier League in goals ahead of, quite a lot of other predictably good players.
Yeah. Well, it is going to be interesting because those teams that aren't the top teams that aren't in the Champions League or doing what we were doing. I mean, you saw in recent seasons how many goals Arsenal were scoring in these early rounds of the Europa League, smashing everybody. I mean, that's where most of our goals were coming from at one point. Who have you got for a winner of the Championship?
I'm going with Southampton this year to win the Championship. I think they're set up really well. Russell Martin, as manager, is good, and he's a very, you can tell he's a fan of Pep Guardiola and Barcelona and the City teams. He enjoys that type of football, and he talks about it regularly. He likes possession. He likes a lot of the one-touch passing. And when you've got a team that has a talent surplus over the competition, which I think Southampton probably still does against most of the Championship division, it can be very effective. We all know that, and I think he's going to put them in a good place. The downside of that is if you do earn promotion, Southampton with that talent level trying to play that type of football in the Premier League is going to be a very different story, and I think they could be one that sort of does the bounce a la Norwich City over the next couple of years. But I think this is a good season for them. Martin's going to lead them well, and he may be the next kind of young manager that gets a look to a mid-table Premier League team in the future pretty shortly here.
Yeah, or maybe even sooner than that, because there'll be some really decent managers in that league. Jimmy has just made a point. He says, interesting fact, Arteta at Wembley as a player and as a manager, 12 times he's been there, 12 wins, and the Champions League finals at Wembley this year. I'm going to have to go and look that up, see what those 12 games as player and manager were. But
yeah, I don't know the details either, but I saw this posted on social media, and I don't remember what account it was, but it was someone who's generally reputable in terms of statistics. So that's pretty remarkable, and I guess a good one to have on your side if that's where the final is this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 3 as Arsenal manager with the 2 Charity Shields and the FA Cup, and then as Arsenal player, I think he had 3 as a player with Arsenal. But that's it. I can only think of 6. He didn't get there with Everton. I don't think he'd have played there with Rangers or PSG or Barcelona. So I don't know where these other ones are coming from.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up because I saw that floating around, and I'm judging by the accounts I've seen putting that out there. I think it's probably true, but I can't think of what all those games would be either.
Unless they're being sneaky and going youth internationals for Spain or something like that. But I'm going to go and see if I can find it and then poke holes in it because I like to do stuff like that. Finally, first manager to be fired unlike Lopetegui, who has been agreed to a joint agreement to leave. He wasn't fired. What have you got?
Yeah, he was definitely one under consideration as I started thinking about this, but that's no longer a prediction since it's taken place. The one I went with was Moyes at West Ham. I don't think he'll be the most deserving of being fired, but when I look at everyone else who I think would be up on that list for me, teams like Luton, Nottingham Forest, a team that's going to struggle. Most of them have managers that are fairly newly appointed. And in the case of Luton, earned them promotion. I think he came on just the end of last year, maybe. So he's probably bought himself some time. But all those teams we're talking about, I think if you looked at the expectations that the team and their fans have for them, West Ham would be the highest just based on their last 5 years. So I think when they're kind of drugged down and in the mix with those teams, they'll be the ones falling shortest of their own perceived goals. And it might just be the reason he moves on. They're also a team that is just big enough, and in London, obviously, that Graham Potter's still floating out there. I think there'll be a lot of teams trying to bring him in rather soon, and it might be one as far as Premier League teams. If you're the first one to move your current manager on, you might be the first one to be able to reel him in, which would be a huge get for them if they could do it, because he'd be one that potentially could get them turned around and moving in the right direction after what's been a abysmal summer thus far for West Ham. They've really been put through the ringer by us, and the transfer window in general has not been their friend thus far.
All that money, nothing to spend it on.
Now they're just trying to a double scoop for McTominay and Maguire, which that's that move in itself makes me laugh. But to have that move denied is even worse, because obviously they lose their captain and Rice. Scamacca just moved on. And I don't think they've really brought in anybody that moves the needle in terms of their success. Maybe some guys that kind of maintain the level, but certainly no one that's moving them up the table from what I've seen thus far.
Yes, there you go. So Arsenal in first, Saka 9th for Spurs, FA Cup Liverpool, Newcastle League Cup, Man City Champions League, Haaland top goal scorer, Southampton for the Championship, and Moyes to get the elbow. That's not a bad set of predictions. So I don't think you're going to be too far away from whatever turned out to be right at the end of the season. So tell me a little bit. Oh dear, got the hiccups. Tell people about what you've got planned for any podcasts coming up.
Yeah, so hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we'll be a little bit more active as the season gets going. We've been a little lax over the last couple of months. Part of that's due to availability in our personal lives. Part of it's just less stuff going on when the season's not going. And Mike's been traveling, as we know, with the upper crust of society, higher than any of us other than probably Sophie right now at 38,000 feet. So, yeah, I would expect more a weekly show. We used to do it every Monday. We try and work around yourselves, Highbury Squad, so we're not overlapping everybody else creating Arsenal content. But, yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll have a regular schedule, and you'll see a lot more of me and the boys just getting on there and going completely off the rails as we tend to do.
Jolly good. And finally, if people want to find you on the Twitters, where do they find you?
Yep. Find me on Twitter. I've got it down below there. It's at JC_AFC.
Have you changed that recently?
Nope.
Nope,
it's always been.
That's very short, and I do like the use of an underscore. It's very well placed. All we've got to do now is you to have some wise words and a little wave to the listeners, and then I will end the show. So off you go. Off you go.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate you having me on. It's been a long time since we've got a chance to chat, so I've been looking forward to it, and I've enjoyed this series, and I appreciate you letting me jump on and be a part of it, and looking forward to however many more you can squeeze in before the kickoff early Saturday.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And everybody, I'm not sure if I've got any planned for tomorrow at all, but today's I only planned at about 5 p.m. this afternoon. So it all depends on cats and whatever else I'm doing. So cheers, Jared. Thank you very much, everybody. And goodbye.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Get down, dog. Splendid business.
He nearly caught the bloody thing. What are you talking about?
So I was just eating a full quiche. Well, you don't often see them at it. So when you see them in the supermarket, they need to be swagged, microwaved immediately, and get the brown sauce on one. Bosh, Bob's your uncle.
Never in doubt.